not only 9:45, but we have everyone here. Call the meeting to order. First, we do have minutes that I did not distribute by email, but each of you have a copy. So I don't know if you want to take a minute to review those. What?
They should have got.
Oh, you sent it by,
Yeah.
I didn't,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
You did.
Julie, excellent, okay.
Do we need to approve the minutes?
Yes, we do.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written for the
Second.
February 1st meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from February 1st. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Really don't have much of a treasurer's report, honestly.
No.
Nothing has changed, I guess is a fair. We do need to consider getting signatories. Like if we want to designate who the signatories will be on the bank account, we've opened an account, but don't have actually any signatories. So we can either address that here, or Julie had mentioned the idea of having that be something we establish in the bylaws. So we could consider making the officers, by the nature of them being officers, those authorized to be the signatories of the bank account. So, I guess, I don't know if you want to address that here or address that in bylaws, but one way or another, we need something to deliver to the bank that shows that certain people are authorized to be the signatories.
Reading through the bylaws, it would almost be better to probably have a motion and appoint, like, elect people today, because the bylaws have to be reviewed, published, and all of that stuff before they're approved. And if we need signatories soon, like, we should probably do that today, whether it's just the 4 officers are the signatories, or by name, I guess, either way, so.
I would make a motion that we have the signatories be the officers of the Port Authority.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded to make the 4 officers the signatories of our operating bank account. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
When you
Motion
said
carries.
4 officers, I thought we just had a president, secretary, and treasurer. Vice president.
There's a
Oh,
vice chair.
Oh, is that vice chair? Okay.
So, yeah, if I need to specify who those are for this year, it would be me, Bryce, Julie, and Chad.
Are we going to want that to have 2 signatures?
Well, we could also address that in the bylaws. It doesn't specify as they're drafted. Chad, chime in, but I think that is ultimately a signatory from the bank's perspective only takes 1 person, but from our perspective, we could designate it.
Have the president, the treasurer be the city.
That's not normally happens, president, treasurer.
Okay,
And we're not gonna have a lot of transactions here immediately, so I mean, if we adjust that in the bylaws, that would lock it up and clean it up a little bit, I think. So I guess if we just do the motion to do the 4 officers by name
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
it'll be fine in minutes.
That's
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
okay. Okay. That, I guess to test our sound, Jake, are you able to hear us?
I am. You guys able to hear me?
Yes. It's coming through on the speaker. Okay, excellent. Thought that, for one, you guys had some questions last time. I thought that maybe it would be best if the person that actually did the designing would, be the one that directly explains some of the thoughts that went into those deliberate, choices of designing this. And Jake has also offered another plan that shows expansion options. So what we've been calling concept number 8 is what BNSF is right now going through the approval process for, and that should be in your meeting packet from our first meeting on February 1st. But today's packet also has the concept of the expansion ideas. So I just thought that having Jake just talk through some of that and be available for questions would be good. So I'll turn it over to you, Jake.
Sure. So if you're looking at the future track expansion options that I put together, the blue lines that represent the tracks that are currently proposed in the design as it is today. So that's what, as of right now, those are the tracks that the project would construct once everything's complete. The orange lines represent future options that are available to us with the current design. And so I guess I just want to make that designation clear right off the bat. So the current design is set up primarily to focus on the unit train grain business for Wind River, and that is pretty much the only capability that is currently available with this design, with the caveat that there's many chances to expand into other businesses, whether that's wind farm component storage, liquid fertilizer, dry fertilizer, or just regular manifest shipping. I guess that's kind of the 30-minute or 30-second elevator pitch. Open it up to questions, I guess.
Should I pull up either one of these?
Yeah, I guess if you want to pull up that expansion options, Brent, Carolyn, that might be the best way to go about that.
On the, I do have a question on your possible later on, your liquid fertilizer deal on the inside of the circle. And then you have extra tracks laid there for storage. And this might be a better question for Bob. But if they're bringing in 20 or 30 fertilizer cars, to fill the tanks, would they need the extra tracks on the inside? Or would they just have to coordinate with you guys to where when you guys didn't have a train coming in, they could dump the cars and then get them back on the main tracks?
For the most part, you'd want to have some extra track inside that, because if the BNSF brings a unit train in, you have to have the track available. Okay. So if they're bringing in 20 cars or whatever, you got to have enough siding, and that's what he's put into that plan. If we did do that, that way they could offload those off the main line or off the loop track.
Okay.
Best case scenario, 2 tracks.
Yes, I think that's I thought Carolyn brought up a good point. If we have 2 tracks, depending on, if there's money available for those, and you could do the 2 tracks, then you're already set up from the beginning versus having to come back in and do some of these other things.
I do think that so one of the things we're involved in is an OEP. It's an operations efficiency program. So that's loading the trains and kicking them out. Our goal is to have them out within 10 hours. And so I think keep that in mind. I mean, when we have a train, and the railroad is pretty darn good on coordinating with them as we're loading. So they're typically there within a half an hour to an hour after we're done pulling cars. So there could be some capacity with just one loop to share that with others. At least, especially on the front end as we're getting established. So,
And that's the one thing too, with Garden City having our track and plus this one, it gives us some flexibility to move things back and forth. When we ran Ensign, we did some of that. So, but you know, if we can build it in this thought that, you know, we can get some other businesses in here. So we don't overbuild it, but yet, if we can get some more traction, more people interested to do everything up front would be nice. But that's also a, you know, a cost that we'll just have to go through and see what we can do.
I understand, I mean, you can put the fertilizer tanks on the inside because your loadout for your semis could be on the outside of the tracks. If we ever, you know, I know there'd been talk about a rock facility might be interested or something. Does that have to go on the outside or on the inside?
For the most part, I would say that'd be the outside on something like that.
Okay. So we'd probably have to purchase some more ground there somewhere to go on that side, or?
Well, or, you know, there's some room on some of those corners. It looks like we could do some things too, especially that one corner. I guess that would be, I gotta get my, that would be on the south.
Between the south and west corner.
Yeah, you could, you know, possibly do something there, or, you know, even, you know, we could expand that road out. We do that right now with the ethanol plant, you know, we work with them on traffic and everything, so we have quite a bit of flexibility on those things around Wind River today, and I would see the same thing with this.
You know, I know Carolyn had talked to the landowners about expanding it onto the east, I think, but where they really don't want to interfere with their irrigated circles.
Yeah.
But there are dryland corners, especially the 4 dryland inside corners, and that would be basically 28 acres, or no, be 21 acres.
Yes.
I'm sure we could probably get something worked out with dryland corners, which would be 7 acres here or there, which would definitely help.
Yeah, and if we have something like that for the rock side, I think we can work around that, so.
So Jake's sending me a message that he's having trouble hearing you. I
Oh.
think you guys can hear him, but he's
Okay.
having trouble hearing you. But Jake, what they're asking about is being able to bring in aggregate and where that would go. Do you have any comments to make on that?
So, aggregate cars are, they're shorter than grain hopper cars, and so up to 135 car aggregate train loop would fit easily inside the loop for the grain cars. And so, what we could do, I mean, what we would do in the future is either you could build it now or you could build it in the future, but build a tunnel underneath the outside grain loop or a conveyor to convey aggregates from inside the loop to out. So the loop for an aggregate train could go on the inside of the unit train grain loop.
So we can do it either way. And that's, we've even talked about that with if we build a bunker ourselves, that we would go ahead and put the tunnel underneath the tracks so we can have all the equipment if we decide to do that. That way we could use the inside of that.
Either Bob or Jay, could you speak to the wind tower storage? How would we do that?
Okay, so in case you couldn't hear Jake, the question was being able to, speaking to the wind tower storage.
Yeah, so that, based on what I understand on how operations go at Garden City, that would, you'd probably have to have that business kind of on the teardrop area on the north side of the old US 50, 20th Avenue there, just because their operations, there's so many trucks going in and out, and where if you had a unit train parked on the loop for the grain storage, you would block access to the inside of that loop from time to time. So with that business, you'd be looking at that northern area north of 20th Street. That being said, there's enough room if we did a double track, kind of double dead-ended track in a similar configuration as what's shown in the orange lines there, that you could store what they consider a unit train for wind farm components up there. and also provide enough access along the tracks for cranes to pick the product off of the flat cars and put them onto trucks, just like they do at Garden City. Does that answer the question, I guess?
I think the one question I would have is that with the curvatures of that, with those big wind turbines on do you think that would facilitate that as well?
Yeah, so they do, those cars do work with 7.5 degree curves, which are what is shown there on the teardrop area. That, I guess, that southeasterly curve, that's a little bit tighter, but we could flatten that out and rework those switches to allow for a 7.5 degree curve, paralleling the 20th Avenue right of way there. I'm confident we can make that work.
I think that'd be important to be able to handle those cars. I think it's lucrative business.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only thing is, we have to choose, right? Do we have to choose whether to do wind turbines or the manifest?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So when turbine business, as it goes on out there in Garden City, it's a very busy area, and it takes up the entirety of that yard out there. So north of 20th Street, if you put in wind farm business there, I don't see much of that area being available to manifest shipping.
And it's because that you need that space for actually parking the turbines, or is it because the traffic, just to pick them up off the rail, would consume all of that area? I mean, say if we designated a space across the road where they park them and warehouse them essentially, or even like if you went to what would be like, I don't know, east, and parked them there, would that represent a feasible concept?
Possibly. Again, I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't know the ins and outs of that business, but based on my experience with what goes on there at Garden City, the components themselves require a very large footprint for storage. Not only because the components are large, but also they require a decent amount of buffer space around them to get cranes in there. And they have to be very careful with the loading and offloading of those components. Any amount of even what we might consider minor damage can actually ruin a part, specifically a blade. So they're very careful about that fact. I don't know the ins and outs of what TP&L does down there, but based on what I know, I don't see that being an option, I guess.
I would concur with that. For the most part, when they set those out there, they've got stuff probably out there 4 or 5 years. So, they're setting it there quite a while. So, that went from a storage area from 18 acres to 640 acres now. So, it takes up a pretty big blueprint as you grow that. But that's why we were looking at that, the ground to the east and to the south, if there was an option at some point, if it did grow, that we could expand out into there if that's,
Or are you thinking in terms of that being the wind component storage place to
Yes.
the east or the south?
yeah.
So I guess where I'm going with this is just the idea that we need to make a choice in a way kind of early on, whether we value more putting the track in for wind components or the idea of manifest. I'm getting calls, a little bit. Yesterday, I had probably an hour or more long conversation with the Kansas Sorghum Producers Organization, and they've even got some money that might be able to be granted to support something, but it boils down to, they've got members that are interested in containerized shipping of Milo. So, I don't know, just the idea that we may have to make a choice is kind of like a dilemma to me.
So I'll throw something out. I guess with that, if the wind, I mean, if you use the tier track, let's just say for the wind to start out with, and there was some manifest you're working on, I think we could probably work around some of that on the loop track anyway. I mean, we can, you know, especially if it was a double loop, we can work around that. If the wind got big enough, they would probably build their own track to come around. That's what happened in Garden City. So you could still expand that track he's already got on to the east there if it really grew to that point. And that's, then the biggest thing they gotta watch is power lines, those kind of things with those big cranes. So that would be one of their biggest things is, are there power lines that they have to work around? Because they don't want anything to do with any power lines or anything like that. So I don't know that, I guess, Carolyn, that it's gonna, you have to make a decision today on that. You know, when what you're looking at, I think it's good that we're talking about that, but I think either way, you know, we can work around that to start out. If all of a sudden wind wants to come in and you got manifest, you know, or containers, then I think we can work around those things anyway. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah.
So do you guys manage the wind part of the?
No, we don't. What Wind River did was, you know, when we first came in, we had what the railroad calls 2 tin cans is what we started with. And then as we built the relationship with the railroad, and that's when the ethanol plant came in. And then we used our switches and our tracks between us and the ethanol plant to help with the wind farm. So that's what happened with that. And then they built some of their own tracks and their own switches. But we've used that relationship with the railroad and our switches and everything to help bring more business in is what's happened. So we didn't have, I wish I could tell you we had this big vision that, okay, it's going to be a grain deal and now it's going to go to this and that. It just happened that as we started, and then as the ethanol deal, you know, that got to be a big thing, and they said, okay, where do we want to be? Then we do all the procurement for the ethanol plant, but then they handle selling all their DDGs, and then the wind farm handles all their logistics.
So who does the coordinating of all the trains for?
Well, the thing is now they have switches on the other side, so Wind Rivers comes in on one side, and then theirs comes in on the other side. So everybody has their own switches now.
We do share some track with ethanol for tankers though.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that, our fourth, what we call ladder track, that we share with them and use. So, and we all work around that. If they have something, we can work around those things. We share equipment, they need mowers, I mean, we just all kind of work together. We're not charging each other back and forth. If we need a crane, you'll always see those tarps. They bring a crane over and usually 10 guys and helps us, and we put the tarps on, and they're helping us do all that. So we just share back and forth. The synergies of that are incredible. So you just think about this. Wind River was sitting there, we were handling, say, 20 to 25 million bushels. Put an ethanol plant next to you that's handling another 22 million. You're going across the same scale, everything. So all you're doing is continue to make that more efficient. So, and then you got DDGs going out on as well. So, does that answer that? We got a little bit long-winded on that.
You guys were talking about increasing the one curve to a 7% curve that they need for the bigger blades. I'm assuming wind turbines are kind of like farm equipment where it keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
You know, when I built a shed 20 years ago, I can't hardly get my combine in now. Should a person look into the future and think about maybe trying to plan for bigger stuff somewhere down the line?
I would guess you're probably right.
Okay.
That's what I was, you know, when I look at the curvatures, that's what I guess what I'm always thinking about is, you know, it's the same thing in trains. We went from, used to be 100 cars or so, now we're at 115 cars. And I think the only reason they're not bigger than that is just because they don't have the sidings for passing lanes. So I'm guessing that they'll continue to, if it's more efficient for them and they can pull more cars, they're gonna continue to go that direction.
I'm thinking if we do pick it for wind storage or whatever, that we should go with the flatter curve. Because, I mean, if they do come out with the bigger blades in the facilities, they're already there with the 7-degree curve that can't take larger stuff, then that might open a window to where we might be, I don't know, better in line to take some of the bigger stuff, I don't know.
How big are the blades that you guys are?
I honestly can't
Even
tell
in
you.
the past 4 years, they've gone from
Oh.
62 to 65 meters or,
Yes.
whatever. They've even gotten bigger just in recent things, so.
And where we don't work with those every day, we don't, but you're exactly right, they're getting bigger all the time.
So maybe a situation where the wind component would be better off splitting off of our big loop and going to the east or to the south. That's to accommodate your curvature better and your manifest being where it's currently shown.
I mean, if they will build their own track and the majority of that stuff would come in there and we could secure, the land to the east, that whole thing could be developed into whatever they
Yeah.
wanted. And it would be appealing to them and we could still have cargo, basically, right?
Because part of that is they got the blades on one part of the property, and then they got a lot of the other components on another one. So they're a lot smaller, those other components, so you could put those in the pier track there in that space and probably still have room for some containers and things, because some of that stuff actually comes in containers. And you could put that on that side, and then if it was a bunch of blades, you could always expand to the east or the south. I mean, in reality, you still got all that space in the middle of this thing too. Could you ever put, blades or, you'd have to build something over the top of the tracks. And we're gonna be really careful about that, but, you got a bunch of open space there as well. Especially if they're gonna leave it there very long. You could put that out there and just leave that stuff for quite some time.
Now, are we talking the curves on the manifest tracks or the curves coming off the main line? What curves are we talking about? The 7.5?
Okay, I don't know if you can hear Jake, the question.
No.
Do you want to say it louder, or do you want me? Okay, so he was asking which track we are looking at when we say the 7.5-degree curve. Is that the manifest track or the?
Loop track.
Yeah, like are these blue, like coming off the main line, are those 7.5?
Yeah, the Ys coming off the main line.
Yes, those are 7.5. All of them are 7.5-degree curves, i.e. suitable for unit train, except for the curve that's in the southeast corner of the teardrop there, where it says center line CL track C. That one's a 9.5-degree curve, so it's a little bit smaller. But all the others shown are 7.5-degree curves, or larger.
For me, part of the game is trying to ascertain which element of that business is most likely to occur soon. We've kind of approached it in my mind of the grain is our anchor, let's get that started, and there may be incremental business that comes following. But I think there might be a case to be made for it. That incremental business is kind of sitting around right now, and maybe it's not a whole lot harder to apply for grant funding and so forth that offsets a cost of a portion of 9 million versus 7 million. And let's go ahead, if we can establish which of that business is most at hand, and we can, get some documentation of that, just like we've worked with Wind River to have a letter of intent, then maybe we should just go ahead and plan to capture that now. I just don't know whether the better of those opportunities is wind or manifest. I don't know.
Jake's the BNSF guy, right?
No,
No.
he is ASM Engineering.
Okay, he's the engineering for the railroad though?
No,
Okay.
he's an independent company,
Okay.
that Economic Development and the Port Authority paid, with the grant funding that came from the state.
I guess my question is, and I looked here at the cost to construct this and stuff, and nowhere on it did it say it was one track that I can read. And it appears now we're talking about it's a single track. My question is, if you build a single track now and then you turn around and need a double track later, how much more is that going to cost than if you start to build the double track right off the beginning?
Can you hear that? Jake?
Yeah, I think, so the question was, how much more would it cost to build this track later as opposed to building it now? Is that essentially the question?
Yes, that's it.
Like if we wanted to build a double loop instead of a single loop?
Do you want me to pull up he's given us a cost estimate for Plan 8, essentially. I don't know if you want me to pull that up, or if you want to more directly answer the question of how much more would it cost to do the second loop.
Yeah, so the biggest maybe cost associated with building at a later date is you have to pay for additionally a new project startup. So that's design, obviously at a later date, but also another mobilization from a contractor. And you'll also get some savings with economy of scale if you build it now as opposed to at a later date. If somebody's going out there to buy 20,000 track feet of rail, they're going to get a better unit price than if they were going out to buy an additional 5,000 track feet of rail. So, I mean, I can't answer that question with a hard dollar amount until we kind of have a better scope of what we want to potentially look at building now versus in the future. But it's not insignificant. It will be if you guys are pretty certain on additional businesses coming in, and that's a done deal, and it looks like it would happen if you had the trackage. I mean, I would definitely recommend building it now as opposed to in the future. So.
It just seems like to me, the more businesses you bring in on the inside of this loop and you add, you know, each one like this fertilizer deal has its own little deal. And say you have something else and you do all that, they're not all, everyone comes in and builds their own little deal and then it's not all connected. Whereas if you did it from the start, you know, you'd have both your loops and you'd be ready regardless of what business was on the inside. They wouldn't each have to have their own little deal. It makes sense. I guess it's just the extra cost, what it would cost to do it from the get-go.
I guess that'd be something that we can look at further down the line when we find out how serious some of these other people are.
Yeah.
You know, I have to build another track inside if we don't need it right now.
Yeah.
But if we do have other businesses that are, you know, would help pay, or, you know, that we're interested in coming in, we'd get a letter of commitment. I mean, I would think it'd be silly to do one track and then come back and do another track.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess right now our main focus needs to be Wind River,
Yeah.
you know, and getting the original deal done. How many bushels do you think you guys need to run through? I mean, how many bushels do you think you guys will do a year?
We're talking coming up here, I think you're gonna need to do between 12 and 20 million.
12, 20?
Agree with that? Somewhere around.
So like on your 100 car, you said 115 car trains?
115 cars.
So how many bushel is that on 115 bushel?
Around 425 to 450,000, depending on if it's wheat or corn.
Okay.
or milo.
I'm looking for, I can't find it easily in my email. The,
So how many tracks do you have at Garden now?
We have ladder tracks, we have 4 ladder tracks is what we have. So they can set them in there, but this is the most efficient, and this is what the BNSF is going to, it's all loop tracks.
All loop tracks.
Yeah, for the most part, I think it's all loop tracks. And basically pull off with their locomotives, they get off of them, you hop on the locomotive, you're trained, use theirs, you never disconnect for the air or anything, and then they come right back in, pick it up and leave.
So you guys don't have to have your own locomotive there?
Not in the grain at first. Now, if you start putting fertilizer and these other small things, then you'll have to, we have our own locomotive today, but we're not moving 115 cars, you know, we're doing what, 35?
Yeah.
Kind of is what we're doing. They're empty and then we push them back through as we load them. So there's a little bit of a decline coming through there, it gives us a little bit of help.
So it sounds like, 15 million bushels would be 35 full 115 car trains. My math is right. So 52 weeks a year. So, right now, you're talking like 1 train a week-ish.
Yeah.
So there's going to be quite a bit of downtime. That's why you're saying that you're fairly confident that you'll be able to work
Yeah.
stuff out. If we didn't have the additional business from the get-go, it definitely, like Todd's saying, wouldn't make sense to build a double track because we're only using the loop that we'd have, for 10 hours of a week. And that's kind of on the small end because that'd be 35 trains, 52, yeah. So as far as, have you done any, market research on our area as far as, I'm not as well versed in the ag world, that's fairly attainable, that 15-ish million bushel as far as?
We've done a lot of the work already on the production and everything, and then
Yeah.
we've already been in contact with the 2 largest originators in the area, and they're
Mhm.
both very interested in joining.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure they had interest in it first of all, and
Yeah,
they're very much on board. We'll go see one of them as soon as the meeting's over.
yeah, so the bushels aren't a problem, that's.
Well, unless you have a drought.
Yeah,
it's-
well, yeah,
Yeah.
but under normal circumstances,
And we don't, we may be a little careful when I say this. You're gonna have plenty of competition that's gonna be coming after us.
Mhm.
They're not gonna welcome us into town and say, yeah, it's not gonna be an easy business getting up and going. It's just like any other,
yeah,
commodity business, you're gonna have to hustle like crazy.
Yeah, you've got the schooler 25 miles south and Bartlett 40 miles to the north.
Exactly right. So that's why it's so important that you're on the main line BNSF and you have a partnership with them already.
I'm assuming you get a better freight rate on it than they're getting.
Not necessarily. It's always, they're not giving their rate a lot of money or anything. You just gotta get out and hustle and you gotta earn the business. So,
is it fair to say that you trade freight just like you trade grain?
to a certain degree, we're always positioning ourselves in the freight market, because we're working with the originators and how much they think they're gonna need to move. So we're always in the freight market. A lot of train loaders like us, that's done. The schooler does it in their main office, Cargill, ADM, but we're a little unique. We do all of our own trading on everything from our office. And that's why we're separate from, we have the support of a big multinational, but we are also independent of all those.
So if we were to get into other commodities, do you see yourself buying the freight for like the smaller shippers that might come down the line?
I would guess they're gonna buy most of their stuff in these smaller units, and they're gonna buy it delivered. So I don't, usually with that's not really a big, at least we don't trade that hardly today. So I don't know that we'd be trading that. We're gonna be trading what they call shuttles. They're all the 110s, 115 car units. So there's a secondary market for that. So that's what, I don't know, the smaller ones. I would never say never, but we just don't know.
Or it would probably have to be like, we buy a shuttle and it's gonna load out on the 15th of the month, and now we have to assemble the business that fills the shuttle.
Well, on a shuttle, you're not building the shuttle, you're just buying the cars, 110 cars, and they're bringing them in, and you're loading them, so you don't, does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking more the container type
Yeah.
stuff for sure.
And I'm not as well versed in containers. There's always a lot of talk about containers, but now you're talking about shipping companies you're working with, and there's a lot of other things that go into that. I've heard them talk for 15 years about, containers, we're gonna bring them out there. We got DFA sitting right next to us, and they're loading containers, and they're going all the way to Kansas City to load them. So, if we have it here, and if we could get, we're this much farther east, if we could get containers, I'm sure they'd love to ship them here versus going to Kansas City. But,
So, I pulled up the cost estimates, Jake, just to use this as a frame of reference, just even not getting into the specifics, but generally speaking, like if we were to look at additional track. So, I don't know if you're able to see the same thing I'm pulling up right now, but the 6.8 million projected for the cost of Plan 8, I'm looking at it, and the rail, just truly the rail portion of it, am I reading this right, is 1.67 million?
Yeah, I mean, so that is just the actual steel rails and to construct it, yeah. So, if you're looking at that cost estimate, I mean, it's broken out by construction items. So, honestly, a good way to, maybe if you want to use this as an approximation, is on Concept 8, is essentially 16,000, which is essentially what we're proposing today, 16,000 track feet. If you divided that 5.85 million divided by 16,000, that would kind of give you a somewhat close estimate of what an additional track foot may cost. Because you also need to account for all the earthwork that would go into the track bed, rock for the rail bed, any culverts, subgrade improvements, that kind of thing that you would need to construct the track in addition to just the rails themselves.
Yeah, you could be looking at extra.
So, yeah, that comes out to be about $365 a track foot.
Yeah, I would think you would definitely need some more commitment. I mean, looking at another 35–40% of the total cost. I mean, definitely some extra business to do to that.
Like I said before, I think this is probably something that we could look at a later date.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if Bob had anything else he wanted to tell us. I know you said that you had another meeting after us. We don't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh, no, we're just gonna go to the origination side on the grain side and meet with them, so,
Okay.
no, we're not. We just wanna make sure we came and at least introduce ourselves, if you had questions for us and, what we're doing, and, the one thing we wanna make sure, we don't have all the answers. We always say we did everything wrong at Wind River, so we've tried everything and we've looked at everything, but we just kept an open mind to everything, so, we've been very blessed, and, if you have big crops and we're in a great area, and, you got 1.5 million head of cattle around you, and you got an ethanol plant we got the biggest end user in the market next door to us.
Yeah.
That's absolutely huge. So, you're doing all the origination for them, plus all those trucks are coming across there, and what it's done to Garden City and that whole area. I mean, now you've got a meat packing processing plant for 250 million right next door to us. They're working on that now. So, if we took a picture of what we started with 210 cans, and then you take an ethanol plant, and now you got a CO2 plant next to that that's pumping into the gas wells, and then you take DFA crust, and you got the new packing plant, and you got, the wind distribution center. It's amazing what's happened. But a lot of that is because the city, the state, everybody out there has worked together. So that's, and I guess it's pretty fun for us because we get to come in and see the change, and everybody's working together. And, we don't try to get in, if somebody needs to move something around, we let everybody, we try to do that. So we're not perfect by no means, don't get me wrong. We have, but everybody tries to work well together. But the only way that wind distribution center went in was because the BNSF and the state and the city, economic development, everybody worked together. So I know another question I saw on you guys' last meeting is, who's going to promote this, right? So what happened with us is that we would get a call. The wind distribution center is a perfect example. 2 guys in a pickup in Greeley, Colorado call me, look at a Google map and say, we're looking for track to offload, wind components. So we were 11th on the list or something. They were looking at Coolidge and different places, and I said, here's what we got. We'll try to work with you. We went from 11th on the list to 1st on the list after an hour, and they were there the next morning. We met with economic development in the county and the city, and within about 2 weeks, we had a letter of intent, and we were using our track, and we didn't realize at the time they already had components set in the P&W ready to come our direction. But the only reason that happened is we already had the switch. We had the tracks between us and the ethanol plant that we could share and help them. So, and then they went ahead and built the tracks and everything. So, we're really conservative. I mean, we'd love to say, let's build 2 tracks, let's do all this, let's make it. But Wind River is a very conservative company, and we kind of like to, move, we like to walk before we run. But, in this case, I thought Carolyn brought up a good point that, if the cost isn't too much, and we could look at both, but part of that is we're going to be, prospecting for aggregate and wind and all those things as we go along. So to have someone that has to be responsible for that, to me, at first at least, Carolyn's going to be getting phone calls, we're going to be getting phone calls, and we're just going to be talking back and forth to say, what do we do to help develop these businesses?
I was gonna say, with the relationships that you already have, would it be ideal for wind components to be like, hey, we could have a major, because I know they've got Larned in here, and like this could be the centralized, hey, there's this many acres, and we can add and keep it all kind of here. With the relationships that you have, is that like, well, we could probably make that, connection at least, and see if they would be interested to help guide us towards what do we do right now. I mean, if we can acquire, get something, if there is interest in there, that would help make the decision a lot easier.
Yeah.
If you got close to a letter, or, had that.
Oh, yeah.
And we've already reached out to both, and so, we just want to make sure as this comes together, how much, what is it going to cost? We got to have kind of, here's what it's going to cost you to unload. So, we have to wait for some of that, but they're all aware of what we're doing. So, and I think everybody's very interested in it. They just got to see what it's going to cost them to offload and those kind of things. But it doesn't look like we're slowing down any at all on wind components or any of that. So, and even the co-ops we've talked to so far, they want to look at fertilizer, so that it's not just they're looking at grain, they want to look at the fertilizer side and everything as well.
I guess probably the key is whatever we put on the inside, we need to get it set far enough in that if we add a second track someday, we don't take that possibility out. That's probably, because like Bryce said, I thought about 35 out of 52 weeks, that's all we got for one track. Looks like we have a lot of expansion right there for a while.
Yeah.
especially if you're doing it in 10 hours.
Yeah, that's it,
You're,
you know,
you're in and you're out, so.
yeah. So,
As
So
long
maybe
as
maybe
long
the
as
next
all the-
thing is that we gotta figure out what our operating and lease agreements are, so that when we're talking to these prospects, we can be a lot more clear about what our tariff structure is. And that's probably gonna be whether, you know, the big determining factor, and whether they will be willing to sign a letter of intent or whatever.
That's what we're expecting, we just get all the money to put this together on the track. And
I know.
we can make this all work.
If we could get them to commit, it'd be a lot easier to get that money.
We have a lot of faith in you. I do, I guess, you know, and I won't take it. The one thing I would, and Carolyn doesn't like to, I think, beat her own drum, but that, as I look at, you know, other rural communities, we know we've got a decline in populations and all, from all, I grew up in Colorado, small town. I mean, it's just, you have to have somebody working on economic development all the time. And it's not just them, but you know, where you got proactive people in the community that want to see things grow. And, you know, that's the thing that, you know, I would commend her on, and really all of you, that, you know, you've developed this, you've got a port authority, you guys are, you know, seeing what you can do. And, you know, you're out hustling all the time. I just think you have to be doing that all the time if you're going to, you know, grow and you know, and your biggest asset is your young people. And if you lose them, you know, they're going somewhere else and they're probably not going to be coming back.
and then your community dies.
So, you know, I think I would commend you guys on that, because I think it's huge that, you know, this Port Authority to me is a brilliant idea that, you know, if Wind River's just going to come in here and we had to put all the track in, it just, the economics get so tight, I'm not sure. You know, when we looked at it before, it's like, man, we just couldn't really, you know, it's pretty tough to make that all work. But with this, and we can, you know, we've learned a lot in the last 10 years too, other businesses wanting to come in and what we can develop. But I think it's a really great idea, and we're really excited about it because of that. You know, we learned, you know, all the people that we've, you know, and when we were first sitting there with 2 tin cans, you know, as they call us, it was a little different, you know, but now when you got the volume we got every day, when you're stocking 250, 300 trucks a day, every, you know, 5 days a week, that there's just that synergy and that energy that creates things that you just don't think about. So whatever we discuss here, probably in 6 months, it will look a whole lot different. But we're going to be prospecting all the time. When we leave from here, and I've already, you know, had calls into, you know, different people already this morning about, okay, we're going to be meeting with them. You know, as we talk about this, you know, what are you thinking? What, you know, what is the state on KDOT? They seem to really like this aggregate coming out of Colorado. It's different, and they don't have to use as much oil for that. So, you know, because it's just a different rock.
So, Jade, how far, like, into the 90% plan with BNSF are we? And, like, how much flexibility is there, I guess, if 3 months from now things change drastically, you have somebody that's wanting to sign on to do wind, and we're like, oh, never mind, we do need that second track. Like,
Yeah, so I actually had a call with the BNSF yesterday, just talking about kind of the engineering and the plan comments they made, but I brought up the possibility that we may be wanting to make some changes. And they said that we wouldn't have to start over the process. We would need to submit a new concept that would lay out what the overall track would look like, and then also our operations for the additional track that we would propose. And then we can move on to revising our 90% plan set. So I guess you tell me if you want me to keep moving forward in the process to get to 100%. I can keep moving forward with that, or if we need to put that on pause for a little bit until we get kind of the future expansion maybe ironed out a little bit more, I can do that. But once we go through one step with the BNSF, they will work with us, but we will have to, if we change things after the fact, we will have to go back kind of, not exactly to square one, but we will have to kind of re-vet out the design with them after the fact. So personally, in 3 months, I was anticipating we would be well done through the design submittal phase with the BNSF and on to kind of figure out actual construction costs and maybe lining up contractors to build this thing. So that would be pretty far down the process to, it would be doable for sure, but it would maybe add another month's worth of kind of coordination between us and BNSF if we were to initiate that change 3 months down the line. So, that was a long-winded answer. Hopefully that answered your question.
Understood.
Jake, have you talked at all with this group about, how the BNSF is to work? I mean, sometimes, I'm not sure how they've worked with you in the past. You work with other railroads and everything. Maybe just so they have a feel. The BNSF has been incredible for the growth out here, and especially in Garden City. And I guess that's the only thing, so they maybe have a feel of what you go through all the time, and,
Yeah, so I don't want to paint them. They're a very willing partner in all of this. So doing that type of design change, like adding an aggregate loop 3 months down the line, that would definitely be very doable from there. And they would just want to go through the steps on like their operations and engineering to make sure they understand what we're proposing. I mean, essentially what we're doing right now with them. So they would definitely be open to that. It's just want to make sure that everybody's aware there's a little bit of the extra time and effort involved in doing that above and beyond what would be required now. They again, any like 3 months down the line, we do want to add the teardrops for the wind farm components. Very doable. I'm sure the BNSF will work with us to make that happen. So I don't have any reservations about doing that.
my main point, I just want to, when you look at the partnerships, they are an incredible partner. So, we've experienced it all the time on different things. So, I guess that's the only thing. So you guys are aware, that not that we've worked with a lot of other railroads, but they are an incredible partner, and they really want to help these. Now they got a reason for wanting to do that too. They want more business as well, but they've really been great to work with, and that's Jake and I talked yesterday and how they've been working with him. And even as Carolyn and I started with this and talked with them, they jumped right in and said, okay, here's what we can do, and then they were front and center from the very start. So, for you guys as community, I guess I just want to make sure you guys realize the asset you have there too. You're sitting on the main line of BNSF, and they want this rail line to grow.
Well, I think that has a lot to do, it's a credit to you and your organization that dynamic exists, because a lot of places don't experience that kind of cooperation from the BNSF or any Class 1 railroad. So they have seen a way that they, you deliver business to them and are reasonable to work with. And I think that has a lot to do with why they are approaching this with such collaboration, I guess,
I won't say much more, but this is what I really believe in business. If you can develop a win-win and have some fun doing it, it's amazing what can happen. But, if it's all about the money and the greed and all that, and somebody feels like they're not getting enough on their side, that's when we come together on these meetings and say, we talk about what do you guys want to see, and what can we bring to the table, because we don't have all the answers. But, I'm far enough in my career, if it's not something that's going to be some fun and do everything, I'm not really interested.
I reiterate what Todd said, that you guys are the priority of this. I mean, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, and really, I view you guys, good deals get better, bad deals get worse, and dealing with you guys from the get-go and you helping us out is gonna be instrumental in the rest of the project, you know, expansion forward. I guess in my personal opinion, something to think about is I wouldn't want to change ASM's direction right now as far as anything crazy on here. I don't see that wind turbine here on this teardrop. I mean, maybe some storage, but you know, with things getting bigger, I don't see any other way that they can really make that a 7.5. So it almost seems like wind is going to have to be out on one of the other quarters. So, you know, with the extra cost that it would to do 2 rails, I mean, I'm kind of thinking the way you are, you got to walk before you run, and adding another 35 or 40% cost from the get-go of building 2 might not make sense right now. But like Justin said, you know, backing everything off to where we have, sounds like he's mobilization and some redrawing. That might be a small portion of the total cost of building a, you know, if you're going to spend $2.5 million mobile and a contractor and doing some more drawing might be worth it instead of doing it from the get-go. That's I'm throwing something against the wall and seeing if it sticks. I
Well,
mean,
if we know, it's just, to me, it's that question of, is the business really there? Do we
Yeah.
want to try to nail down the same type of, you know, commitment? But then I kind of come back to what we were just saying is, well, we don't know what our tariff structure is exactly yet, so.
Well, the old adage, you know, we got an anchor here, we got to start, we got somebody in it. Okay, let's get it built, and we'll be surprised who will come.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're telling us?
Yeah, if we can just keep, you know, we'll just keep prospecting and, you know, all of a sudden the wind, they want to bring something in with wind and we're only using the track, you know, we're going to say, let's bring another bit, you know, something in and they can offload on the back side of that.
mhm.
So it's not like they couldn't offload it. Now we might, you know, how we do that with the track and the land would be the biggest issue, you know. But that's something we can go through if we go. We're just gonna have to be flexible. I mean,
And I think we just got to move forward with these gentlemen, get on down the road and just make sure we don't build a plan that we can't expand if those opportunities come. So,
Yep. How much on-site storage are you talking about for your facility?
Yeah, so initially, and we gotta work some of the details out, but initially we're thinking 3 500,000 bushel tanks and 1.5 million bushel ground piles, so total storage of,
Around 3 million? Yeah.
and some of the details we still gotta work out. I mean, as you referenced soybeans, and that's what we're having the internal discussions, how many commodities do we need to be able to handle
Mhm.
efficiently and so forth, and that's some of the stuff that could change a little bit.
Yeah.
but we got the design and everything, kind of the footprint, you know, what you guys are seeing now, kind of, that'll change a little bit, but.
Yeah, it should be close to that though. but
Yeah.
And fertilizer, how does that, I mean, like, the Concept 8 loop has what it takes to be able to do fertilizer? Is that,
Well, you got the liquid there, you know, again, we have to work with that. Do we need that little spur track to come off of there? Can we just use the track we already have? And, you know, that will have to be something we'll have to look at. But, you know, it wouldn't mean we couldn't offload those tankers right there into that, off the main track there. But that also requires we have our own locomotive then, and so some of those things. But initially, we're just saying, we're gonna bring in 110 car units, we're gonna either unload them or load them, and that's what we're doing initially. And if we go meet with someone this afternoon and say, hey, we think we should look, they can look at that, that's great, but if we get off on too many things, we're gonna have aggregate, we're gonna have, I think we just we'll focus on that first of all and try to get that anchored around us, and then, because I think there's great traction on that. I mean, I made 2 phone calls and both of them were saying, we want in. So, you know, it makes me feel good that they see what we've been able to do and they feel like it's a good thing for them.
I'm sure you have some kind of a idea. I've had a lot of people ask me, I mean, on a facility like this, how many employees do you guys think it would,
Probably 6 to 8 people.
6 to 8? Okay.
Because we'll do the accounting, all the trading from Garden City, at least is our concept right now, so we won't add those here, but, you know, you'll still have, we're running 67 trucks right now. So those are not direct employees of ours, but we run those year round. And it can vary, you know, we're really going heavy right now, but, you know, it might go down to 40 at one point, but, you know, that's, you'll have all that traffic, but those are direct jobs, but they're not jobs that we're hiring those people. All those are independents.
Yeah,
So,
but the facility itself will probably take 5 to 6 people.
probably 6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, those would be on-site people.
Yes.
Okay.
So as long as you got enough housing and all that stuff for it.
I don't know about that.
I heard Carolyn's pretty good at all that.
Yeah, yeah,
She's got a lot of hard shoulders.
yeah.
Carries away.
Okay, so I don't know. I'm kind of thinking through next step. Maybe we just go through the agenda as it's written, but to me, you know, our next time together is a Port of Katusa, which probably also could feed into kind of how we think about approaching the lease agreements and the operating agreements. But to me, those two components are kind of like the next priorities for the leadership of this organization to hammer out, you know, that I don't know if you have any thoughts on how you want to go. Do we want to kind of establish a committee? Do we want to have, or do we want to go through the Port of Katusa and see how that goes and how that might influence our thinking? And okay. Wish that was March 1st instead of March 12th.
So on your grants and everything, I guess for our board, and so as we're planning, when do you think you'll have more of an idea on that? So then we can look at this lease component, so we can tell our owners, at least with Wind River, what we're kind of, here's kind of what, you know, we've got to make sure we're paying for this, you know, that
I know.
infrastructure, and, you know, the upkeep of the track and those kind of things.
When
We're
you
going to
think-
keep working on our design and everything, but
To me, the sooner the better. Because I feel like it factors into all of the pieces of you know, finance too. It's your business plan, but it's our business plan too, is how I would process that. And I see a schedule for the finance kind of opportunities. They're going to open up here in the next 60 days. So I would count, that's where I say, I wish we had that. It's a gift that they're allowing us to come visit their facility. So I'm very thankful, and the 12th worked for them, but
Can we have a call with some of them maybe, that, you know, we get some information to see how they do prior to going down there?
we can check into that.
Because that would take less and maybe help us form a little more solid direction.
So the grant writing will open up in about 60 days, is that what you're saying?
The economic, yeah, for sure, the economic development grant has a deadline of April 31st, I think it is.
I just said March 31st.
March 31st, okay, there you go. Yeah,
And then, once the deadline's hit, how long before they notify you?
July is when I would expect to have a notice on the KDOT grants. But here's the other thing, I could be initiating contact at any time with some of our legislative representation in DC, because there's been a lot of talk of infrastructure bills, and we could also consider, in fact, the call I got yesterday from the sorghum producers, they'd already had conversations with KDOT and KDA, who are aware of our project because of that, and they're talking the support of earmarks. So that is definitely, you know, the shoot for the stars kind of approach, but I feel like we should keep that into, you know, as a consideration. And I know it's all, there's several elements of chicken and egg, but again, making the case for funding for that, if there is any opportunity for incremental business and we can establish that sooner rather than later, I think that makes our case stronger for asking for the funding we, you know.
Were you kind of wanting to know, Bob, as far as when we would know how much grants we were going to get, to where how much money the economic, or the Port Authority was going to have to borrow to see how the rental?
Yeah, we just needed, in our projections, to see what that lease is gonna be. So we can, know the cost of the asset and all those kind of things, and do those projections, but to know what, our owner's gonna want, what are you gonna pay for this lease type deal, and then that's why we wanna keep working on these others to say, what else can we bring to the table besides just the grain? We can go through the grain and, it's gonna vary somewhat, but, if the lease is, too much for us, then that's where, I think seems like there's money available like we haven't seen for quite some time on a lot of different things. So, Department of Commerce is another one. I mean, I think this project is getting a lot of, talk about it, and it seems like that your timing is perfect for money to help, but our first question is going to be us is what is the lease, so they know when we're making those projections, will be one of our first questions.
Do you have a sense of whether,
I'll say that now.
Yeah.
No, I think so.
like a fixed lease payment versus fees related to the amount of traffic? Do you have a sense of where what your preference is, or what would give you the best incentive to increase traffic?
Well, I like to performance, I think for you guys, we have to have a fixed lease no matter what first, but then if we can bring more traffic to that, maybe we could be incentivized to do that, where that would go down some if we build the business, help build the business. So I like incentivized, things that say, okay, you go get more business, you hustle, and I love that with team members or anything else. Let's go hustle more business, make it more successful, and then it helps everybody. So I think there's two components to that. You guys have to have a fixed, payment you're gonna have from us, plus this other side of it.
Yeah.
We're thinking about the same thing with the grain side. How do we bring more bushels to that? What do we do to incentivize that?
Yeah. Do you have something, I view this as a partnership. So do you have something in mind or in writing with other, in other parts of your business? Do you have an example of something like this? Because, we're going to go to Port of Katusa and we're going to see how it runs, but ultimately we're going to have to formulate how this comes down. And I view that as some give and take between us.
Yes.
I don't think that we can go down to Katusa and pull something that they use and then expect it to work perfectly in Stafford County.
Exactly.
I guess in a roundabout way, can you help us formulate this?
Oh, yeah. We're going to be very...
Or do you have examples of how this works, how you see it working on your end of things, and then we can, come together on the particulars, but...
So we already have that in place with our ethanol plant. So they pay us so much for procurement. That's all written down. What we've always said, and I just met with them, their GM last week, is we put that together in 2008. We haven't pulled out of the drawer since.
Yeah.
Now, I was sitting in the middle of negotiations on that, right? I had my owners on one side and I had the ethanol guys on the other side. And I was really uncomfortable the whole time, okay? Because I had my board saying it should be more, and I had this should be less, right? And I was right in the middle of it, trying to, keep everybody kind of, And I remember asking my board chairman, I said, this really sucks. I mean, I don't enjoy this at all. He says, if everybody's a little bit upset with you, you probably got the right deal. And that's, but we really, that's the only thing we really have in place with anybody at this point. With the wind distribution center, we let them use our track. We didn't charge them much anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are things that, there was some charges on some trackage for, with the ethanol track, but there wasn't much. But that's,
Yeah.
we just have a flat agreement with them, that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I guess what I view it as is, we have to know where you guys have to be to make it work on your end of the deal, and then we're gonna have to know where we need to be to make it work on our end.
Yes.
And to me, that's a conversation that we need to have, back and forth. It will help us in my mind, going to Katusa and seeing how it works and visiting with them, but I guess that may be something that we need to look at, getting an example from them to help formulate.
To me, Bryce, what you're really asking is, we've got to be totally transparent with you guys. And
Yeah.
you expect the same thing. You guys are going to say, guys, here's what it's going to cost us. Here's all the grants and everything we get. We got to pay for the rest of this. I mean, we're all in this community, and we're going to have people asking us, why did you even give this to them or whatever. And so you guys are going to go through and, Carolyn's going to get as much as we can. We're going to do everything we can to put more bushels through, and we're just all going to sit down and say, here's what we got to have from Wind River as a base, and then we're going to go see what other business we can get to build it. And, we're going to go after every resource we can as well to help with the project.
Yeah.
But, that transparency is huge for all of us.
So out there, you guys own the track out there.
Yes.
Whereas if we do this and she gets the grant, and we're gonna build the track, then we would be the one getting the track fees or
That's
whatever
right.
charges. Okay, those are the details we gotta work out.
Yeah,
And, I sit over here nervous because I'm a farmer and this is like, oh, wait a minute. I've never done anything like this. So, I may ask a lot
I guess
of
that's kind of why I'm
questions.
asking for some guidance as we
Yeah.
go through this from you guys, because we can't just throw a number out and then it be way low or way high. I mean,
Yeah.
we need to be working together on it, because you guys are the foundation of the project, and if it doesn't work for you, it's not gonna work
That's right.
for anybody.
So would you agree with this then, Carolyn? What you're gonna do is you're gonna see, this $7 million, how much you think you can get on that? We're gonna take that, whatever's left over, and say, okay, here's what Wind River's gonna have to pay initially, right, to get this thing, so we make sure we're making all the payments. So we've gotta get our board to agree to say, okay, this works for us, we're gonna put that in our projections, here's how many bushels we gotta handle, and we're just all set down, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be very transparent about it, and
So it sounds like this summer, July-ish, we'll maybe know some more on the grants.
Yeah, but do you see where I'm coming from, that to make those grant
Grants.
proposals, we gotta have our business plan. We gotta show them how we're gonna make the whole thing cash flow so that they think it's a good enough project to finance, to put money toward.
Yeah, to get grants.
So in my mind, getting these things, nailed down, really, like, the next thing that we work on is important.
so what you're saying, Carolyn, from us, is you need Wind River's business plan, so that we can put that in place, right? So to say, initially, here's what we think this project's gonna cost, and here's where we're at. So that's what you're gonna need from us, and we'll work with you on that. And then, what we'll do is prospecting on other businesses to say, hey, we would be interested in this. We think we can bring so many cars of aggregate, or wind distribution, or fertilizer. We'll work on that besides our business plan. Is that what we're saying as far? I always like action plans when I leave from here, so that to me is what you're asking for, right? That way you can write that into the grant. The more people and the more business we think we can get into that grant, the better off it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah, I guess another way of saying that is I need to establish what our business plan is. If it's just Wind River, and that's what we're asking for 7 million, or a portion thereof, okay, that's fine. We can set out the cash flows and show how we're gonna pay the debt that we have to assume and so forth. We'll have our tax increment finance district that can play a part in paying back the debt. But that's, to me, that would be one version of the business plan. A different version, not altogether different, but somewhat different is a different business plan that says, okay, well, we're pretty sure that we're gonna be able to bring in, aggregate and fertilizer, and we need, whatever it is, $8 million worth of track. We can make that business plan, but again, we just kind of have to have those components of what kind of fees are we bringing in from Wind River? What kind of fees are we bringing in from another business? Do we have it in writing that they are actually planning to come here if we build it? And then I think part of that is also that if there really is some, I don't know, commitment of those additional businesses, I think it broadens our financing or grant opportunities. So I want to be conservative too. I don't want to invest in things that we don't have some certainty are going to be used. But I also think that if there is a possibility of capturing that, trying to capture it now might help us get the whole thing financed at all.
Have they brought fertilizer out to your facility?
No, we've never done that.
Okay.
So Wind River did get that, I don't know what we call it, designation over at the wind distribution center that we're what they call that, the transloading facility. So us and Great Bend got that at the time. So, that was one of the reasons was containers and everything. So there's track and everything there, but that's really never developed. That the wind deal just got so big that there's been no containers. I say no, there's maybe a few. And there's been, on their track, they brought in a little bit of liquid feed and maybe a few other, but nothing very big. Not comparative to what we're doing.
But we should have advantage over Great Bend's facility just because of the track, the BNSF track, I would think.
You would want to think that, but all these guys are, no one's going to lay down and say, welcome to town. No one's going to, I mean, it's, for any of us to think that this is going to, it's like any other business, we're going to have to be.
Everybody's margins are going to get tighter.
Yeah.
Part of the money that we'll have coming in on, not just with the lease agreements and stuff, will be where this will be put into a TIF district to where the Port Authority will get the property taxes on them. Is that correct?
Yeah, if this
So-
group and the city and the county each want to enact their part of it, what it would do is allow the incremental property tax. So looking at the property that we've got options on, combination of property taxes on those two parcels is roughly $5,500 a year. Now, if we put, improvements on it, and those improvements generate over $200,000 a year in property tax, that difference, say it's $210,000 worth of property tax that it generates with all of the grain bins and loading equipment and scale house and whatever. The amount that is over and above that 5,500, so say 205,000, can be rebated back to the developer, which in this case is the Port Authority.
So do we
for the
need to
development of
have,
infrastructure.
do we need to talk to the county appraiser and see what kind of information he needs?
I already have, and we do have an estimate based on the amount of the specifications that Bob provided. So that over 200,000 is not a theoretical number.
But I mean, when you told them, did you just tell the bushels, or I mean, do they go off what it's going to cost to build it, or scales, or?
Well, we could talk to Carl about exactly what his methodology is, but I think it is based on industry standards, like they appraise buildings that are metal bins theoretically the same throughout the state as, and which it might be a different way than they appraise the concrete bins, which might be different than the way they appraise the ground pits or whatever. Where it gets tricky, I mean, like what I would love to have is a more precise estimate of the amount of cash we could expect to get rebated. but I can't get anybody to help me actually do that because it's kind of tricky. The basis isn't based on a cash number. It's based on what the valuation of that property was at that date. And so that valuation fluctuates year to year, as does the amount of mills applied to, you know. So it's not a hard and fast number. And in addition to that, there is a portion of the incremental tax that is exempt because of state law. And it basically is I want to say 6 mills that goes to the state on behalf of school districts. I can come up with a pretty good guess, but it's not going to be a precise number, and it will fluctuate a little bit year to year anyway. But I would say of that 200,000, we can probably expect 15,000 or something to not be rebated back for our use in debt payments.
What is the life of the TIF?
It can be up to 20 years. So 20 years is what I would expect we're probably talking about. Now, here's the thing. If all the governing entities said, we want to establish a TIF district for 10 years, they could do that. Or a plan that has a 10-year life. But I'm just aware that our ability to carry out not only the initial plan, but potentially expansion ideas would get easier with a longer TIF.
I can understand why the county would need to sign off on that. Why would we have to have the city where it's so far outside of the city limits?
Okay, so on our agenda, I think I have, maybe I added it, and a letter of engagement with Polsinelli. We can get into the explanation of that, but the state has to authorize, you know, the type of program that we're choosing to participate in. So it's state law that establishes the tax increment finance districts. And it is is my understanding, the section of law that has to do with municipal codes. So it is designed as a municipal tool. Polsinelli will tell us that, I mean, they're what I would say specialists in this type of law, that that it can be done in the county, but it takes a process of doing approval by a city and a county simultaneously. So here's the thing. I've got on new business a letter of engagement with Polsinelli. I think their specialized help in this would be useful because, well, John Beverland doesn't have a specialization in this.
So it doesn't matter whether it's 10 miles away from the town? I mean,
And this
so
is-
if
I asked them to provide a legal explanation so that if one of us is going to the city and trying to ask for their cooperation, it'll be a little maybe more precise than what my explanation is. But he has told me that, yes, it is an instrument of the municipality. So you have to have a municipality that is authorizing it. At one point, see, this is where John was telling us, I think we're going to have to annex the city. Oh my goodness, this is turning into a bigger project. And then talking to Polsinelli, they said, no, you don't have to do that. You can have the city authorize it simultaneously with your county and achieve it that way. He said something about the law being silent on which municipality it is. So I think theoretically we could have any municipality in Stafford County choose to participate with this, but probably makes the most sense that St. John is close by, and you guys, as county commissioners, have even already had a meeting with the council looking back a year ago, kind of some strategic planning type thing. So, but it wouldn't, I mean, he said it doesn't have to be, is not prescribed as what city it has to be, the closest city or whatever. What I've asked him to do is to give a, and I'm kind of skipping ahead here because,
Statute, so that
um,
get shafted by the county.
I guess that's something we can talk about at a later meeting as far as
Yeah.
giving the tips. But I just didn't know whether, you know, if we need to get more information from Winfield Grain, you know, whether Carl just looked at a 3 million bushel storage facility. And I mean, I can go over and ask him. I mean, if you got 2 sets of scales, I mean, do they charge on everything or is it just per bushel? I mean, it would be nice to get as close to that figure as you can, but I do understand that the percentage and it's a changing number every year, but it's not changing that much.
right, and, right. So that's, I don't know, this, some of the stuff I think you've kind of shared with me that you want to be discreet about is kind of your within trade secrets of your business, I think. So I don't know how much of this to like throw up there during a public meeting, but I
don't
think
need-
I have
We're
the
fairly
email that you're
confident.
I don't need to know the trade craft. I was just
Yeah.
wondering if we need to get any more information for our appraiser. And I can ask him what he would like. And I mean, if it's just a simple bushel deal,
Yeah.
I mean, we've got everything we need.
Yeah, if we can, you know, I mean, I guess my biggest action plan I'm taking away from this is the business plan for Wind River, kind of here's where we're at, here's what our projections are. Then as we kind of know, and we're working with Carolyn, because we're going to help her build this, for these grants is what we're going to try to help her build for. Then the more we can help her with that, the more we get this thing paid for, and the less our lease is going to be.
Yep.
So we're just all going to be transparent about, you know, here's what it looks like, and there's not going to be anything hidden from us.
Well, I'm amazed, you've already said that you're already getting phone calls of contacts, so that means it's out there.
Yeah, oh, it's after your meeting, then, you know, I got calls to watch the meeting, so, you know, it's so, yeah, it's people in this area. I think Carolyn was surprised, I got a call right away and said, hey, you might want to watch this whole thing, and so, which was good. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
it also, you know, makes me a little careful when everybody can go pull this up. We don't want to keep you guys if there's something, I'm sure Jakey's like.
yeah, I know, it's just, Jake, I think we're done talking about design things. I don't need to hold on to you longer than, than is necessary, but, I don't know.
Okay.
So, I do appreciate you taking the time to walk us through everything here.
Yeah, definitely.
And all the work that's gone into developing it in the first place. So,
That's what I'm here for.
Thanks, Jake.
Yep, I'll talk to you guys later.
all right, thank you. Okay, so I have stuff. Okay. This is what I was trying to, I mean, I have, I feel like I'm skipping, I'm not holding on to the agenda very well. This would be what I would talk about in the new business, but what I'm asking Polsonelli to do is to provide us a timeline. This is what they provided at the grocery store, and it told us step by step what we needed to have approved. You know, we gave them dates for city council meetings, and it really just laid out a map of what we need to, a checklist of what we need to have done. In addition, what I've asked them to do is to provide an explanation why we need to do this with the city as well as the county in their words. And he's estimated it would take him about 2.5 hours. So we'd have about $1,000 invested in that.
I'd be happy to go to the city with you.
What's that?
I'd be happy to go to the city with you.
Okay. That'd be great. Um,
But just the two of you need to go, I mean, not the whole board.
No. Yeah.
Don't want to scare them.
Yeah.
So are we done,
So,
getting ready to talk about bylaws and this and that?
Yeah, I know, we're skipping. So do we want to, should we just take care of this piece of business and then go back? Would there be consent to work with Polson, or to sign a letter of engagement with Polsonelli to get that specialized guidance?
I think we gotta have it, I'll make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, motion to contract with Polsonelli Law Firm for specialized guidance on the TIF.
You
And a
need
second.
a dollar amount or up to, or just, we know that it'll be around $1,000 and just leave it.
I think, you know, in the letter of engagement, they
They
show
have
what
their
their
hourly
hourly rates
rates
are,
and stuff,
and then in
yeah.
an email, he's told me he thinks that it would take 2 to 2.5 hours. So I think that if we hold them to just that, if we don't ask for more than that, we would have. Okay. All in favor?
I
Opposed? Motion carries.
I don't
Okay.
think you guys don't have to stick around for the rest of the.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
so
about
the
to
only
do some
other
really
thing-
boring stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll let you guys do that, we'll do the
We
fun
won't- we won't
stuff.
worry
I really
about it, so.
appreciate you guys coming out and talking
Yeah.
to us, and I really look forward to working with you guys. I mean, I think this is really a good opportunity for Stafford County and hopefully Winfield Grain. And I mean, talking with you guys, I feel like the sky's the limit, and I mean, we're just getting started, so.
We appreciate the opportunity, so,
Yeah.
you know, we both grew up in small communities, and if we can do anything we can to, you know, in the right manner, so we're gonna do everything we can to make it really successful, I will tell you that, so we're really excited about it. I
Good.
think I told Carolyn 10 years ago, I'm not sure I was quite as excited, I think I was more nervous. I don't think I knew what I didn't know at that point, so the timing feels right. So, but, you know, we always appreciate, we're a small company, right? We got one train load, in Garden City, Kansas, so, you know, when people invite us to say, hey, we'd like to work with you, we really appreciate that, so.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe it'll warm up next week, guys. So
Right.
Yeah.
Safe travels.
Now, are we gonna go with one track or two tracks?
I think right now we're just forward on one
So-
track and,
Yeah. So Jake is gonna continue on with the one
One
track
track.
concept and do his 90%.
Yeah. That's how I think we left it, but we also kind of left it with Bob, that he could be talking with these potential companies. So, I don't know. I mean, if we actually got some level of commitment from them,
I mean, I think we could go ahead and do it if we got a level of commitment, but I don't think we
Yeah.
can tell them, go ahead and start designing it now
Yeah,
without.
I think just to keep the ball rolling, we almost have to go with the one track design.
And I did,
And then if we, I mean, worst case scenario, you get some commitment and you have to step back and say, whoa, we need to change something, but just to keep her going.
and I didn't mean to derail that conversation, because I think we just do need to move forward as we are.
Yeah.
But, if we did get some interest in whatever, the cost that it's gonna pay to go back and have the design is not gonna be anything compared to the revenue that it would bring in. So,
Yeah,
I mean, move forward, but, if something transpires quickly, what would that be? I guess what my question was.
I really appreciated Bob's positivity
yeah,
toward more business.
yeah,
He understands the more that happens out there, the better
Yep.
better price we can give him.
Yeah, yeah, his margin gets to go up. More business he brings in.
He's a businessman.
Yes, he is.
Are you guys going to the next St. John City Council meeting?
They just had one last night, so it'd be next month, right?
Yeah. Would be the first, that was the third Tuesday, right?
Yeah, it's the third Tuesday of each month, right?
First and third.
What I think would be a perfect fit would be the grain, fertilizer, and aggregate.
Yeah.
Because I'm certain the state can get, they would want a closer supply. KDOT would
Yeah,
for this area.
be more centrally located, I think it'd be a good deal. Can we go ahead and get this whole business knocked out?
Yep,
Because
let's
this
do
is
it.
about an hour longer than my meetings normally run.
Okay. So, first going through the bylaws. Have you had a chance to review them? Do I kind of go through maybe article by article, and if you're fine with it, we'll move on, just to make sure that I don't think everything,
They're pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, do you have any,
so
I
for
guess,
example, do we want the looking at Article 4 offices? That's the county clerk's office. It's fine. If we want to do, I don't know if the county clerk knows that, but.
County clerk's office.
Yeah, that was record keeping county clerk's office or something, wasn't it? Isn't that why that was in here?
Yeah, it is. Meeting by telephone, that almost sounds antiquated to me. When they're doing it by Zoom now, or video conference.
Or electronic media? Other than
yeah,
telephone.
it says teleconference, telephone, or similar communications equipment. Does that pretty much cover it?
It covers it.
Okay,
It just,
yeah, I'm fine with that.
meeting by electronic means.
Yep.
Um, One of the things that, removal of directors, I don't know if this is an important thing or not. Hopefully it never is. But it's one of the things that I've noticed was incorporated into economic development bylaws. If a person misses by unexcused absence 3 consecutive meetings, they consider themselves resigned, and it doesn't take an action of the board. I have been on boards before where people just went absent. Hopefully that doesn't ever happen here. We're doing enough stuff that people are interested and they want to be involved, but it can be a problem of getting a quorum if you don't have active members. So I don't know. And any director who is absent from 3 consecutive meetings without excuse satisfactory to the board shall be deemed to have surrendered the office of director without any action by the absent director or by the board of directors.
I'm okay with that. If you don't show up, you don't have an excuse.
But the board can appoint a new board member, it's just not, if you miss 3, you're off the board.
If you miss 3 and don't communicate.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Like unexcused, you just go AWOL.
Yeah.
Because it says satisfactory to the board, so,
Yeah.
stuff happens if you miss 3 and you got valid excuses, then.
Right.
But this is basically the AWOL clause, that if somebody just flies off the handle and blows up and then doesn't show up, doesn't,
In 3 deals, you can.
yeah.
Okay.
And which section is,
Well, I thought it might make sense in section 2 on page 5.
Yeah,
Section
last-
2 of article.
You're talking about modifying the last paragraph.
I would just
Of
add a
section
paragraph.
2, or,
Yeah.
okay.
Add a paragraph. Any director who is absent from 3 consecutive meetings without excuse satisfactory to the board shall be deemed to have surrendered the office of director without any action by the absent director or by the board of directors.
Sounds good.
So if you're gonna do that, you probably need to remove the second paragraph, because they would be in conflict.
Which paragraph are you looking at?
The any director,
The bottom paragraph in section 2, any director may be removed for office by Board of County
Well, to
Commissioners.
me, that would be more
well,
like somebody violates conflict of interest standards or something, and others, that director may be removed for cause.
But didn't you just say that the board, this board can remove someone in what you read?
What I read is that, I'll say, any director who is absent, it's specifically for absences.
Okay, it's just for absence.
Any director who is absent from 3 consecutive meetings without cause satisfactory to the board shall deem to have surrendered the office of director without any action by the absent director or by the board of directors. They don't have to do anything that could feel very conflictual.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. One is just for their non-participation, the other one is for a breach of some kind. Okay.
That's how I read it. Do we want to put in anywhere that the chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary will be signatories on the bank account?
and that we need 2 of them
Okay.
to be,
And that's what I didn't know.
I would say it's always good to have 2 signatures on a check, don't you
Yeah.
guys think?
It is.
I would think in most deals, it would be the chair and the treasurer would sign the checks, but I guess if somebody was gone,
If somebody was
Either
sick
2
or gone,
officers
you needed to
did.
do it.
And as long as you specify just 2, it could be any 2. I think that's how we have it set up
Yeah.
city-wise.
But
I
just
think that'd be best.
generally, just
You would know it.
outside of the bylaws, generally, it would just be the treasurer and
You
the.
probably just add that in Article 9, where we establish the funds and public deposits.
Well, you had that in section 2 of page 8. So, shall be signed and endorsed by such persons or persons, but I guess you need to name those persons. Page 8.
So section 2 on page 8, and then just add, signatories would be the,
The officers.
the officers, and then there would be 2 signatures. That's probably be the best place, unless you put it in with the duties and responsibilities of directors and just added the chair or the officers. But it's 2 different things, really. 2 signatures and officers is 2 different components. I think you could put them together in section 2
Page section 2 on page 8.
on
So,
page 8,
too.
and it would be less complicated.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay,
Sorry, I stopped mid-thought there.
No.
so
Is that okay from the banking?
signatories to the operating bank
It just
account.
lists officers and does
We'll
list
need the
names.
chair, vice
Okay,
chair,
and then they'll put it in
secretary
the
and
minutes of
treasurer.
who they are. and
all
then
dress
we'll-
we
groups
need the
will
minutes.
require
Yeah.
2 signatures.
In our system.
That's not all these things.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Is there any other things that we need to look at closer at?
The one other thing I thought may warrant some, conscious choice is in the very last paragraph. It's insurance, section 4. The bylaws as they were originally drafted used the word shall. Port Authority of Stafford, or PASC, shall maintain in full force public liability insurance. Well, here's the thing, we definitely want to have liability insurance, but we also, right now, have no property to insure. And so, I don't know if it's warranted to have some flexibility that it shall have an insurance when the port obtains property, or something that gives us some ability to manage that with limited funds and limited things to insure at this time.
So have these, because mine says may maintain, have these already been changed?
Yes, I wrote that word may in there. They were originally drafted by the attorney shall, and there was some discussion about it even at that point.
So mine says may too.
Yes,
I wouldn't have a problem with leaving that may in there.
uh-huh,
Like you said, until we get, I don't think we need to say that when we get the land purchased or whatever done, that we will, because it gives the port authority, I mean, I would think once we get land, we're gonna have liability insurance, but I don't know if the wording needs to be in there that you will or shall.
I
I don't
think may covers both sides.
Yeah,
okay,
That's good.
okay.
So we're just having the 2 changes.
Changes to Article 11, adding a section 2. Signatories will be chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer to the operating bank account, and all drafts will require 2 signatures.
Did you get section 6, Julie, on
Uh,
the meeting by telephone? Did you say you want to change that to electronic means?
Yeah,
Oh, wait. Oh, that's-
Page 3.
I thought it covered,
it does,
or
but
something.
if we just change the heading to meeting by electronic means,
Okay.
we don't have to change what it actually. And then inserting in Article 6, Section 2, an additional paragraph specific to missed meetings.
Good.
So just those 3 changes. And then it says, the bylaws, on page 7, Article 9, the bylaws of the Port Authority may from time to time be repealed, amended, or altered, or new laws may be adopted by a vote of 2/3 of the Board of Directors at a meeting called for such purpose. Do we have to do a separate meeting just to approve these after 10 days' notice to the county clerk? Or am I reading that like way wrong?
No, because that would have to be, a bylaw change would probably have to be published in the paper, right?
Yeah, and then I would say you would at least have to have it on.
It would probably,
It does the called for such purpose mean that you just have to have it on the agenda?
That's how I would interpret that.
But you'd have to give notice if you were gonna change bylaws.
So I mean, we can have this established, but we can't approve it.
We can approve this. I don't think we have to publish bylaws in the same way that we have to publish the plan for development. That I know we are going to have to formally publish. To my
Well, this is Stafford
understanding.
County through its county clerk shall be given at least 10 days' notice of the intent to repeal, amend, alter, or adopt new bylaws.
We did alter.
We're amending them.
We're adopting them in the first place. We don't have, well, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this amendment is in the old bylaws, right?
Oh, they've never been approved yet, right?
Technically, back in 2014.
So once we
Yeah.
fix these, then we're gonna have to go through the process to,
Well, they were
Publish.
adopted in 2014.
We did, but we have had 2 meetings that this has been on the agenda.
yeah.
A public, with a meeting that was given public notice.
Yeah.
So we just.
John kind of gave me guidance that he expected that we were going to approve them at the first meeting. And I said, I think everybody wanted to have some time to read them more fully before we actually took action on them. He's expecting that we're taking action on them today.
Okay. It has been 2 days since we've been on there for a review, so. So we need a motion to approve them as amended.
Yes.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the bylaws as amended. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
So Carolyn, we do not have any liability insurance currently covering the board? Is that what I
We
heard?
do
from you?
not. And I assume you're talking about directors and officers insurance specifically. So yes, that could be another consideration. We do not have, we don't have any of that kind of stuff.
Should we get a quote, see what that is?
I think we probably should.
Just as a CY. And
For how much?
That's the big
My experience,
question.
like our, for the nonprofit I run, it's between 1,500 and 1,800 a year
For, how many
for
dollars?
D&O.
For all officers.
Yes.
For how many dollars coverage?
I'd have to go back and look. I want
Millions.
a million,
7 million?
7 million.
Price is right.
Well, here's the thing, if you really read them though, it isn't indemnifying the officers from the financial decisions that they make. It's a whole lot more around wrongful employment. Like if you, either harass or allow harassment to occur in the workplace knowingly as the board, that's the liability that it talks about the most within the policy. Other things too, but it doesn't hold harmless by the nature of that, like the idea of, I don't know, poor financial decisions. So I don't know, I can get a policy and show you what it, what it would cover.
yeah, that's fine. Next meeting, we'll just look it over and see.
Okay.
EMC?
What's that?
EMC?
Yeah. Probably.
EMC company? Is that who you use?
No, because we're not a municipality. EMC is more around municipalities, but we can try to get a quote.
They
Yeah,
cover school boards.
Because they're public, yeah. I said municipal, I probably should have said, I think they tend to specialize in public entities. Economic development's the one I have the most experience in, it's a nonprofit, so we're getting it through Farm Bureau. And so I think it's one of the brokered kind of, I don't think it's Farm Bureau itself, it's a Farm Bureau agency that's offering it. If that makes sense. reviewing, discussing, and approving a plan for development. So you have two options. One of them has eminent domain specifically called out, and the other one doesn't. Eminent domain is the Port Authority does have the right by state law to exercise that. It doesn't, we don't have to put it in a plan for development in order to have that option to the port if you saw fit over the course of time. My take on it is that I think a lot of people here are sensitive to hearing that word, and it's not this board's, I don't think, intent to exercise any eminent domain. Certainly not in the plan that we're putting out right now. We have voluntary, purchases being offered. So the attorneys that wrote these in the first place put it in there. Looking back to 2014, it was drafted in that original plan. And that's why it was in there. But I think it also kind of gets people worked up if they hear that word. So they ask, does it have to be in there? Well, no, it doesn't have to be in there. We're not using it. So that's the main difference of the two.
I kind of think we need to be able to utilize that.
Yeah. for
I would
sure.
hate to not put it in there and then 5 years down the road
Yeah.
say, well, no, you guys had to put it in there.
I just think we're very transparent on our plan for development. So far, the meetings have all been recorded and, it's transparent that we're purchasing the land. As of this time, we have no plans of doing any kind of eminent domain. However, Wind River started off as some small deal, and in the future, you wouldn't know. You have no way of knowing what it would morph into, whether you would need to at some point. I'm personally not of the opinion to exclude it, and then it be a surprise later on. I would rather it just be in there, and if somebody has a problem with the scary word, then they can call me and ask me why eminent domain is in there, and I'll tell them. But that's part of doing business and expanding, is sometimes there is scary words, but it's for the good of a project in the future, and we're not even planning on doing it right now. So I don't have a problem with it written as is. That's my personal opinion.
I agree.
And it also says pursuant to the KSA 12-3406 as amended.
So that state statute will be there regardless of
whether we
which
print it.
version of
Yeah.
this we adopt.
So I just think, just to be transparent right from the get-go, I'd rather it just be in there.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded to adopt the plan for future development, that includes eminent domain. It's the one of our two drafts that has 5 total pages.
You made the motion?
I made the
Bryce,
motion.
you seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we'll publish that. Other piece of business, the Stafford County Economic Development Board did move, and, we have an assignment of purchase options that they have approved. We need to accept it if you want to have that option for the court to exercise them.
We need to do that, right? I make a motion that we accept the assignment for the option of real estate from the Stafford County Economic Development to the Port Authority of Stafford County.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the options to purchase, the assignment of options to purchase real property from Stafford County Economic Development for legals. It doesn't, it references the legals in the action.
It's
So,
northwest
okay,
of 8 and the southwest of 5, or a portion of the southwest, not correct.
South of the road.
13.
No, it's 5.
Okay,
Province.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I just have a real quick question on the letter from Polsonelli. It's for staff, represent staff of county economic development
Good catch.
in there. Is that,
It should say Port Authority. I will make that correction. Okay.
because our motion was to, from the port, so
Yes,
with
I'll
the
make
change,
sure
it'll
that
be fine, okay.
when I actually sign this,
It was economic development.
Well, yeah, the economic development contracted with Polsonelli to do the,
we
or
had,
you never did it and start?
Well,
Well-
this is February 1st, so the.
So, Economic Development has worked with them in the past on
Yeah,
the
that's
grocery
right.
store project, but we have no engagement with
Yeah.
them currently.
Yeah,
But they probably have my name on, or, you know, just even
Yeah.
just my email is. Okay.
any other business?
Just want to, I guess, kind of cover plans for the Port of Katusa. It takes about 4.5 hours to get down there. So they've given me kind of an agenda that would have us leaving here at about 7.
Seven, 11:30?
And getting there at about, let's close out of this. 11:30, they feed us lunch, give us a presentation, take us on a tour, come back and ask questions, and we'd be done by about 2:30, I think. So, I guess a couple of logistical things. I feel like we kind of have to clarify like what expectations are in this weird COVID environment. Do we want to ride together? Do we shake hands? Do we wear masks? Some of those things I thought it would be useful just to make sure that people know what is planned. I think when I talked with Katusa at minimum, how I kind of even approached it was, you know, is there a way that we might be able to come for a visit if we agree to things like social distancing and wearing masks. So at a minimum, I think we need to while we're on their premises. They've apparently got a big room that they're going to be able to space us out in for lunch. But I can rent a 15-passenger van. We can drive separately. It's kind of some of the, I guess, I'm feeling you out on what you think would be best. And whether, you know, Bob is one that I have talked with outside of our 7. But if there's anybody else that we would like to include, like a liaison from economic development, or Kathleen in our office, to the extent that the economic development office is kind of providing some support. How do we feel about, you know, increasing the group a little bit?
So do we want to rent a van? First deal, or just take 2 vehicles? Doesn't really matter. to me.
I'll drive.
Yeah.
I don't want us all going down in one van
Yeah.
in case something happens.
Yeah,
The other half can carry on.
yeah.
I'll have my second dose before that anyway. so
What's that?
I'll be protected.
What's?
I know some
oh,
oil companies that always split up their executives into two jets.
Yeah.
They never fly on the same jet.
At Home Depot, I wasn't allowed to fly with my assistant. Somebody had to run the store, so
Yeah.
we flew to Chicago.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay with figuring it out a day or two before we go as far as
Okay,
private vehicles.
okay.
I don't have a problem if your assistant there at economic development, what's her name?
Kathleen?
I
Yeah.
don't have a problem, she wants to.
Or if somebody from economic development wants to go, I mean,
Sure.
Don't matter.
This is kind of a different one. I have a young adult in mind that has expressed some interest. I mean, I haven't even talked to this young adult yet, so here we are on, camera and public meeting, so. But it's a young adult currently in college who's expressed some interest in this type of, like, either legal work or trade-oriented work, and I don't know, would it be a worthwhile thing to help try to have young adults see opportunities that they might be a part of as a career? Would we entertain the idea of going?
A young adult already in this community.
This young adult, yes.
and we're gonna need 6 jobs, so, yeah, I don't care.
This young adult is going to college remotely right now.
Pick up.
Four-door pickup.
Yeah.
You gonna take a four-door pickup?
Yeah, I
So it'll
can.
be 8.
Or I can take my expedition.
Your expedition homes.
Country.
3, 4, 7.
I'd take the Mustang.
So you'll
It'll
fit.
take 6, it'll take 6.
Yeah, 6
I have the
comfortable.
economic
Yeah.
development car.
So
too.
we're talking 4 and 6, we have 10 people.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's 8 of us, so we can bring 2 extra people.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as we're all there, it's not the camaraderie of traveling together that, it's COVID. As long as we're all there.
So we should bring a mask.
Probably bring a mask for at least down here, but I guess what we're essentially saying, we're gonna travel together and not necessarily, mask.
Take your temperature before you get in the car.
I take that every day.
We get a mask and hand
So-
sanitizers from the health department.
Yeah.
So we agreed 10, but not 11. Economic development can drive a car, but then that even breaks us up even more.
It doesn't matter.
If you're at 11, you better find out who the 3 that's gonna sit in the seat together. 'Cause that's
Because I have a relation down there. It's like,
Okay. Julie just doesn't want to wake up at 6 in the morning to.
She got a Mustang, she'd make it 3.5 hours.
Okay.
no. Currently on diversion. We're not doing
Oh.
it for speeding, not for anything else.
Okay.
And my husband doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
He will now.
Whoops.
Funny. Okay, I think that covers all the business on the agenda. Is there anything else to be brought up?
No, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you.
Who was that second? That was fast.
Give it a plate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.